Welcome to another Unitrend Certified Administrator course. Today we're going to be talking about scheduling agent-based backups. It's always recommended as a note of best practice to check the support website for the latest guidance on what type of backup you should be running. If you're ever unsure what type of backup you should be running, you can also utilize our chat support or support@unitrends.com or by calling in. Just let them know what kind of server you have and how you have it configured, like if you're using any special kind of disks or anything like that, and they should be able to give you guidance around it. But we do provide an article here that talks about using VM, file agent, or image agent backups, and we're going to focus on the traditional file agents. This is what we've had for over 30 years, where we're able to do a file-by-file backup, and if you had something like SQL or Exchange, that would automatically be excluded from your file backup. We would target that with a database-level backup. This is also typically used when we're using a Hyper-V host, as you should be doing a file-level backup of the OS data and an application-level backup of the Hyper-V VMs. We have superseded this for most systems, though, with what we call image-level backups, or a block-based backup, where we're looking at the changed blocks on disk. This means that if I had something like a 4 GB PST email archive, if I add one email to that PST at a file level, it's changed, so I have to back up the whole PST again. Versus doing a block-based backup, I'd only have to pick up whatever 1 MB sectors on disk changed to accommodate the new email. This is the preferred method for most backups. As you'll see, the simple best practices note that image-level backups are typically best in all scenarios, and file-level backups give us more flexibility when we have special conditions. Like if you're using clustered storage, if you have database availability groups, or if you're using Oracle or SharePoint. Another note here, for example, is if you have Windows Dynamic Disks, you also need to typically use file-level backups there as well. But beyond those best practices here, to create a job, we would come to the Protect menu on the left-hand side, then choose Backup up on the top. So remember the phrase, I'd like to protect it with a backup. From here, we can choose what kind of backup we'd like to do. If we wanted to do a file-level backup of the server, for example, this would capture all of the OS information, and as this is a domain controller, it doesn't have any other services on it. But if I were to choose to do something like a SQL server, this would automatically exclude the SQL databases, but capture all the OS information. And I can set this up for our typical incremental forever across the board, where we just run our first initial full. Then, after that point, we will run incremental backups every single day of the week, starting at 3 a.m. I can even run these more often, for example, 6 a.m. recurring every hour until 6 p.m. I can also go crazy with this and go custom scheduling, where I can drag and drop onto the board here and choose my reoccurrence. So for example, if I'd like only Monday through Friday to have specific hours throughout the week, I can add those hours to this and then add on Saturday and Sunday a completely different schedule. So however you'd like to set this up, the system will automatically manage that for you. We can even run fulls and incrementals, for example, if you'd like to rerun your full the first Saturday of the month at 3 a.m., but I'd like to run incremental backups every other day at 3 a.m. The full will always supersede the incremental and override it on the first Saturday of the month, but otherwise it'll run incremental backups every other day. But with this type of backup, I would still need to set up an application level backup that targeted just the SQL databases. And by hovering over the database here, you can even see what the recovery model of that database is, which will determine the types of backups that you can run here. So if I were to select these databases here, I could then tell it to run a full, fulls with differentials, or fulls with transaction logs. Because my database is in the full recovery model, I support all modes, where I could run a full every Sunday and transaction logs every other day, or I could have the transaction logs running throughout the day with fulls once a day, or any other combination that you would normally use within SQL Manager. You do need to make sure that we aren't conflicting with other SQL Manager jobs though, as if SQL Manager runs a full, then Unitrends runs a full. If SQL Manager goes to run a differential or transactional, it doesn't own the last full, so anything that you get would not be a complete copy. Same goes in the other direction. If we see that the last backup was done by SQL Manager, we're going to fail our backup because we don't have a complete image of the database, and then the next backup automatically will run as a full. But we have again superseded this with what we call image level backups, where we're able to keep track of what sectors on disk have changed. And again, we keep a note here if you have clustered shared volumes, storage spaces, or dynamic volumes on these systems, you should not run image level, but you can always click on this warning to make it go away. From there, we can choose our SQL server or any of our other servers that we'd like to run our image level backup for, and just set these up to run an incremental forever every day of the week at 3 a.m. or more often if necessary. From a perspective of how often should I run my backups, we recommend as a basis once a day, every day as a minimum. If you go more time in between an incremental, it just means that the next incremental will likely be larger because there's more data that's changed. You can go as low as every 15 minutes, but this should be used on typically only 5 or less machines. Just because if you're keeping the box constantly busy with those jobs, it may not be able to get other jobs running in the queue right away. So use that with caution, but the general recommendation is once a day, every day is usually sufficient for most customers. We talk more about our image level backups and some of the other capabilities within another module. Please check our guides online at Kaseya University for more information. Again, every environment does have nuances to it. Every configuration is a little bit different. And if your configuration is something unique and you're not sure, just reach out to our support team. We're more than happy to review the environment and make sure that we're doing the best backup possible to ensure you're covered. If you have further questions, check online on Kaseya University or reach out to the support team. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.